I just love the music and I love going to the parties. And then
fuck yeah.
my life kind of got took a turn where I had to go make money, and so I went and traveled for work. And my dad, he's a composer. He wrote music for like movies and stuff. So I've been around a studio my whole life essentially. But it was kind of like when I was on the road, I would bring my little MIDI keyboard and my laptop and my little, my little hard drives and stuff. And I would work on music, and I'd put out, some of the shittiest music of all time on MySpace, to be fair. And it was like one of these weird things that had kind of happened where, I would get the music where I could, but especially like in the South, and especially at that time, scene was super far behind, like super far behind. So it was really hard to go to, like, you didn't have like house music parties in New Orleans at all. Like they had a lot of like trance and kind of like EDM and dubstep and just kind of like a lot of the commercial stuff, but not a lot of like, especially when I was living in New Orleans, for example, not really a scene for that at all. Right. And so I was pretty disconnected, but I would still write and produce and put records out on the internet, and it just kind of, one of these days, this dude hit me up who was like the crate digger. His name was DJ Chemistry, and he was a crate digger in New Orleans that he sussed DJ AM's crates. Wow. So DJ AM hired him because New Orleans has amazing vinyl collections, amazing vinyl stores, like just amazing like music scene in general. So his job basically at the time was to go find records for him. And he had heard this record that I had done on MySpace and reached out to me because I was in New Orleans. So I gave him the record, and that record did pretty well on MySpace. I had like one record kind of get a lot of attention at the time. I think I had like 30 or 40,000 plays or something like that, which on MySpace at the time meant that 1,000 people or so had that shit. Whatever. So, it was like one of those things where I was like, oh man, people actually, when you're writing, the part of the problem of being a producer, or at least when you're starting out, especially back then, because there wasn't a tremendous amount of producers, like there weren't a lot of people, the barrier to entry to make a studio and have the software and pay the money to be able to make the music was so unattainable for so long.
Physical barrier, right? Literally like physical barrier.
So much money. Yeah. What you can do on Ableton now would have cost you $100,000 10 years ago. Seriously. Like it's out of control how fast like the technology's kind of taken over, which is great because now these kids that are 14 are making banger rap records.
We're here feeling bad about ourselves.
They're sitting there in math class, like trying to act like they're doing homework on Ableton, just like putting out bangers. And like, it's a pretty interesting situation. So, for me back then, everything was, very, much harder. Like I was still, the amount of money that I had in the studio I had capabilities with, was pretty limited, especially back then. So, it ended up being one of these things where I had one record do really well, and then I had somebody want the record, and it was like a bigger name, and then another bigger name wanted the record, and they got very big. And I'd never gone to like a music festival before, but my friend had invited me to go to Ultra in like 2007 or some shit, and 2006 or something, I don't know.
Fuck yeah.
And I was like, cool, I'm gonna go to Ultra. I never heard of it before. Let's go to the music festival. Let's go. And I look at the lineup, and those motherfuckers that were like hitting me up for my record on MySpace were at the top of the lineup. And I was just like, well, if they're big enough and they're successful enough, then maybe my music's good enough. I can do this for real too. So it kind of like inspired me to start working harder and making more music. And then one day I just quit my corporate job, and I was like, you know what? Only way it's ever going to happen is if I get a little residency. I'm going to move back home to Denver because my family, they still are in Colorado Springs, so I could be closer to them. I was like, I'm going to quit my job. I got a little bit of money in the bank. I had like 10 grand or something. I was like, I'm going to come to Denver and I'm going to be a DJ. I'm going to be a producer. I'm making records starting tomorrow, waking up at 9 a.m., getting a little Starbucks. I'm a producer now, right? So I made about $100 a week for the first 6 months of my life as a producer, and found out that wasn't very sustainable. It was I had a little residency. And then that's when I was like, well, if I can figure out a way of throwing parties to sustain the income, then, I'll be able to not only throw the parties that I want to throw and book the shows that I want to book and bring the music that I want to bring to Denver, but at the same time, like, be able to subsidize the amount of time I'd be spending in the studio. Wow. So that's kind of like how it all kind of shook down. I just kind of left the corporate world and I was like, I'm a DJ now. And I'm one of a million that it worked out for. I know so many people that I just got very, very, very fortunate and very lucky that it did. And that's I was able to, pay my bills, because that's the biggest struggle with anything. The biggest struggle is not, it's not, are you good enough? It's, can you last long enough to figure out a way to make a living at it? That's all it is.
Man, do I love Sherm in the booth. Oh, hey. I think you do too. Hope you enjoyed that piece of content. If you're looking for more, make sure to go to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any upcoming Sherm in the Booth interviews, live sets, new music, exclusive artist interviews, Sherm's Word, sub-pack reviews, and more. This is your one-stop shop for everything entertainment. Cheers.